Well, the public broadcaster SBS has rejected a short film about anti-Semitism in Bondi, saying it was worried the content could be seen as inflammatory across some communities. Well, here's a clip from the rejected film. And joining me now is the funder of this film, the Jewish Australian Screen Fund head, Jamie Bialkower. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. Good to see you. So what was your reaction when SBS rejected this film?
Thanks for having me, Shari. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs when the public broadcaster in this country tells a Jewish filmmaking team that a film won't be accepted for acquisition because of potentially inflammatory content. And I just want to emphasize that there is absolutely nothing inflammatory about this film, potentially other than the fact that it's made by Jews and it's about the Jewish experience.
So why do you think they came up with this excuse? I mean, do you have any insight as to what went on behind the scenes?
Essentially, from the very beginning of submitting the film for acquisition, I was told that there were potential sensitivities, community concerns. There was fear of pushback in the current climate. They specifically referenced the climate of rising anti-Semitism, which, you know, is kind of ironic and deeply offensive, considering that this film was created specifically because of the climate of anti-Semitism. And to sort of have that thrown back at us, you know, is sort of an inversion of reality. And I don't think it's acceptable language.
Well, can you tell us a bit about the film, you know, what it is, who made it, and what it's actually about?
Yeah, so it was one of 4 films that we commissioned about post-October 7 life in Australia. So we sort of wanted to capture the changed landscape for Jewish Australians in this country. And Mezuzah Man was one of the 4 films. And it's written and directed by Jacob Melamed, a Sydney-sider. And, you know, he tackled this theme head on. It's about a young man, proudly passionate man called Yossi, who wants to wear his Jewish identity with pride. And he sees his neighbours remove their mezuzah from the doorpost. And, you know, he thinks this is the worst thing you could ever do. You know, like, why would you want to hide who you are? But his neighbours feel that because of everything that's going on, that's the only way to keep themselves safe. And so Yossi essentially decides that he can't accept that. And it's, I guess, through that decision of being true to who he is, that he sets in motion a series of events that unfortunately end, you know, with deadly consequences. And the film sort of explores that tension between visibility and safety. You know, at what point is it okay to tell the world who you are, and at what point is it better to hide?
We know that the arts industry, I mean, there's so many examples of it, has a real problem when it comes to anti-Semitism. I mean, is this something that you personally have noticed or seen around you, that Jewish creatives are treated differently to other Australians?
It definitely does seem to be the case. I mean, one of the reasons I started the Jewish Australian Screen Fund is because there's no representation of Jewish Australians on screen in scripted film and television in this country. And that means nothing funded by Screen Australia, nothing funded by ABC, nothing funded by SBS or any of the other funding bodies. Now, at some point, when you've got projects, you know, with different Jewish themes going in for funding, and none of them are getting up, you have to ask, at what point is it coincidental, and at what point does it suggest potentially something more systemic? And from my personal experience, I feel that there is an institutionalized resistance to supporting these themes. And it's something that we're sort of grappling with across the entire screen sector. I've personally called on the heads of all of the major screen organizations to engage with us in having these conversations, because I think that the first thing is to acknowledge there's a problem, you know, because otherwise we can't expect anything to change. And I think also, you know, Gillian Segal has made a number of recommendations to the Prime Minister about particularly targeting the cultural and arts sector in terms of holding, you know, recipients of taxpayer grants accountable, specifically when they're amplifying anti-Semitic rhetoric or false narratives.
Yeah.
And, you know, based on, as up to this afternoon, there's still been no acceptance of those recommendations.
Yeah, no, it's very disappointing. I agree with you. All right, Jamie, appreciate your time. Thank you.